Good morning. Welcome. This is the official podcast of the Vibrant Life community where I take my members from stressed and depressed to abundant energy and joy on demand using a process that removes the emotional triggers, preventing us from being our most present, empathic, and thriving selves. We do this by going past the surface clutter of emotions and tapping into our core where joy and boundless energy await. And this week, we're talking about healthy boundaries for high achievers. And we talked about relationships so far and time. And today, we're talking about money, how to set healthy boundaries around money. And this is so important for everybody, but especially us business owners who, deal with money on an intimate level, moment to moment. So we're going to start out by I'm going to ask you some questions, and I would love for you to comment. Let me know in the comments what you feel, like how you feel about the question and where you stand on that. And if this is something that you know is an issue for you, if you know that you have an issue with setting boundaries with money, then let me know in the comment. You're not alone. I'd say, most people have issues with boundaries in general, but especially when it comes to things like money. And if you're not sure if you have an issue setting boundaries with money, then, I'd be happy to chat with you for a few minutes and see if I can help you get a little more clarity around that. So, number one, do you set aside time for, do you set aside money for the things that really matter to you most? Like, how do you prioritize your money? And boundaries really are about priorities. It's about what do you say yes to and what do you say no to? And so often we get caught in this loop of saying yes to the things we think we're supposed to say yes to and saying no to the things we think we're supposed to say yes to, or letting our limiting beliefs determine how we respond. So think about this. Do you set aside money for the things that matter to you most so that it's always there for you? So when something happens, and say vacations are like a really high priority for you, and you always know that you're going to have money for your vacations, versus, if we don't allot some kind of a priority to where our money goes, it's going to go somewhere. Your money is always going to go somewhere. So you might as well set up a system so that it's going into the right places. That's why when people talk about tithing, you always take that 10% off the top. Because if you don't take it off the top and do that as like your first thing, then before you know it, you're going to be saying, well, I don't really have enough money to tithe, or whatever that is, whatever that highest priority thing is. So, you can deal with it similarly to how you would deal with time, and you carve out the space to be able to pay for the things that are the most important to you. And number two is, have you determined what exactly is most important to you? Are you living proactively financially, or are you just reacting and responding to what gets thrown at you? Because at the end of the day, we only have, so much money for the things that we're doing, and we want to make sure that there's always more than enough for the things that matter most. And in reality, there is more than enough out there for what matters most to you, and it's just a matter of like, where are you putting that, and where are you putting your time and your energy in order to generate that. Number two, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you feel like you keep track of your money? Like, again, this goes back to how proactive are you being? Are you just reacting and respond to things that come at you? Or are you really keeping close track? A lot of people talk about money the same way. A lot of people talk about relationships with money as being similar to relationships with a close friend or family member. And so if you want to have a good relationship with money, then treat it the same way you would treat a really good friend. So you connect with a really good friend on a consistent basis. The more you connect with that friend, the closer you're going to be with that friend, and the better relationship you're going to have, and the more prosperity you're going to experience in that relationship. And sometimes it might be uncomfortable to connect with that friend because we all go through ups and downs. We all, sometimes your friend might get sick. Sometimes your friend might be in a bad mood, or they might just not feel like talking, or something might happen. Maybe they're going through a divorce. But if we close ourselves off to that friend, then all of a sudden the prosperity level goes and fizzles out. And before you know it, there's no friend anymore. So we've got to continue that connection, that close connection, if we want to nurture that friendship. And so you can look at the same way with money. And one of the best nurture a really strong friendship or a really strong relationship with anything is the boundaries, and setting up strong boundaries to say, this is where I place my money. This is where I don't place my money. Right? And if you carve out space to place your money in the highest priority places, then it's like everything else is kind of a bonus, isn't it? Let's see. And do you stick to a budget? Now, budgets are kind of a tricky thing because especially when you are, like, say you're scaling your business, you might need to do things a little bit out of the ordinary. I love the story of Airbnb, like their origin story, about how in the beginning they just took out credit card after credit card after credit card to pay for the launch of their product. And that was not setting a budget with their money, right? They weren't sticking to any kind of a budget with that. Like, they just had to do what they had to do. So in that respect, it may not apply, but you can still have the mindset of a budget and your priorities with your money, right? And so really what I'm saying with this is, when you set a rule for yourself, when you commit to something, are you honoring that commitment? Because we tend to honor the commitments we make with other people, and it's really good to look at how are we honoring our commitments with ourselves and the commitments we make with our finances. And do you budget? Do you set a budget for things like personal growth and for things that make you happy? Again, going back to the highest priorities, right? Like, how much money do you spend on your cars or your furniture or your landscaping versus the money that you spend on your personal growth or your business growth, or the things that really enrich you. Like, even though your cars and landscaping and stuff like that makes you happy, that brings you joy, but what would you be without that? Would it be possible to still have joy without that? And so those are really important things to look at. Looking at what will bring you sustainable joy if everything were to just burn down. So those are some questions to ponder. I'll just read them off again real quick. Do you set aside money for the things that matter to you most? And have you determined what matters to you most? Like, have you been intentional with that yet? On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you keep track of your money? And do you stick to a budget? And do you have a budget for things like personal growth and the real things that make you happy, like genuinely happy? All right. So thank you so much for joining me today. I would love to see some of your comments and questions in the chat in the comments. And we're going to switch over now to our private Zoom meeting where I'm going to be chatting with our inner circle members and doing some Q&A. So have a wonderful rest of your day, you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.